Hello and welcome back to Grizzly Adams Mathematics. As always, I'm your host, Tony Weathers, Professor of Mathematics at Adams State University in picturesque Alamosa, Colorado. Today, we're going to conclude our three-part look at pi in a most entertaining fashion. We'll start by considering some mnemonics that people have come up with to help remember the sequence of digits in pi, and we'll see how this leads to the creation of an entirely new framework for creativity regarding pi, everybody's favorite mathematical constant. One example of a handy pi mnemonic is the phrase, "May I have a large container of coffee?" As you can see, the number of letters in each of the words corresponds to the first 7 decimal places of pi, provided that you remember exactly where the decimal point goes. I've seen several slight variants of this one, and as far as I can tell, its true origin is lost to history. Here's a slightly longer one. How I need a drink, alcoholic in nature, after the heavy lectures involving quantum mechanics. This is often attributed to an Englishman named James Jeans, although that is by no means certain. For the record, the portion of pi represented by this phrase is somewhat longer than the previous one. Yet another mnemonic was published in Scientific American in 1914, although I do not know the exact author. This phrase represents a slightly shorter chunk of pi than does the one above it. One of my personal favorites takes the form of a poem. Now I, even I, would celebrate in rhymes inapt the great immortal Syracusan, rivaled nevermore, who in his wondrous lore passed on before, left men his guidance how to circles mensurate. As you see, not only does this encode a substantial number of digits of pi, the immortal Syracusan to which it refers is, of course, Archimedes, who knew more about pi than most mortals. This poem was published by one A.C. Orr in the Literary Digest way back in 1906. Once again, here's the full number represented by this poem. Some 80 years later, a man named Michael Keith would reveal himself to be the unquestioned master of these type of writings with his publication of Circle Digits, a self-referential story which encodes a stunning 402 digits of pi, and which, in an added flourish, describes its own construction. Here he has incorporated punctuation into the scheme with the very simple rule that any mark of punctuation except a period represents 0, solving a problem that did not present itself in any of our shorter examples. Once again, here is the full number that Keith represents in his story. This seems to have become somewhat of a thing to Michael Keith, who followed up this effort with a version of Poe's The Raven that encodes a whopping 740 digits of pi. He would eventually develop what he has termed as writing in Pilish, and has a webpage dedicated to explaining how it works. In brief, there are 2 types of Pilish: basic Pilish and standard Pilish. In both schemes, words of fewer than 10 letters represent their letter count, whereas words of exactly 10 letters represent 0. Standard Pilish allows for words in excess of 10 letters by counting the 2 digits separately. In addition to a choice of style, one also has the option to use words only or words and numbers. For more details, head over to his webpage at his web address. Yeah, I'm not going to embarrass myself by mispronouncing that, but just to be clear, this is it right here. There's lots of fun stuff there, including much longer and impressive examples of Pilish. Now, here's a challenge from us here at Grizzly Adams Mathematics. Following the rules of Pilish, either version, how many digits of pi can you cast into a poem, or a song, or a limerick, or a haiku, or whatever? If it will fit in the comments below, post it for all of us to appreciate. Before I sign off, I'd like to give a shout out to the fine folks at Springer for publishing Pi, a source book, which was both very interesting as well as immensely helpful in producing this video and others. Well, thanks for watching this video, and as always, check back for more videos later in the future.